Welcome, our fellow lovers of love, and thank you for joining us on yet another excursion through the stream of consciousness, down the river of tranquility, to fill the lake of life with love.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jazz, she's Lubby, and we are here to spread some love and understanding and empathy throughout the world. And it's been an interesting week for me anyway, because I'm preparing to get this eye finally fixed. And my anxiety has been pinging. Anxiety disorder is a strange thing, right? I get an anxiety attack essentially over putting drops in my eyes. Just a drop. Just drops of medication. I get anxiety over putting drops of medication. There's part of me that actually you would think would rather be blind than have someone stick a needle and suck out your old thing and put in a new lens. Suck out your old lens and it's a 10-minute procedure, right? Routine procedure. Oh, please don't tell me you're all wiggy over there. You're the one who sit there and watch them dig a boil out of my foot.
That's different.
No, but it is. But anyway, so I'm sitting here freaking out over having to put drops in my eyes, kind of hoping that by the time I get around to having to stick the needle in my eye, I'm a little more okay with it. But I'm managing. But it doesn't make any sense. Because the only thing worse than doing this is not doing it, right?
Yes.
Because, that would be stupid, But, you want to be blind or you want to have a basic, simple routine? I mean, this is even more routine surgeries. It's not like there's essentially zero chance of death. I mean, I suppose something could go wrong and my blind eye could be blinder. There's not much to lose, is there? But yet, there's that little part of me that doesn't want to do it simply because it's messing with my eyes. I don't want to have people mess with my eyes. I've never even, as a stoner, most stoners put Visine in their eyes as kids, to try and, I never did that because I hated putting Visine in my eyes. Just couldn't do it. So I never got past that irrational fear of putting drops of salt water in your eyes, which is nothing but your eyes. That's all your eyes mean. But I also can't open my eyes underwater. So
I had to put drops in my eyes to keep them dilated for a couple of years because my eyesight was going bad so quickly, and they did it to try and get it to slow down. It worked, but I still had horrible eyesight. I had LASIK done. They give you a big teddy bear to hold on to.
Yeah.
It's all good.
I don't think a teddy bear is going to do it, but I think we'll survive. I think also the thing is, it's better than being blind. Actually, it's not this eye. It's when it comes back to do this eye, and this eye is working fine, that I'm actually going to have the problem because I won't be blind anymore. And so that impetus of it's either this or blindness isn't going to be there. I'll still have a good eye. Oh, don't worry. I'm going to get past it. Don't worry. I'm not going to be stupid. I'm just don't worry about it.
Okay.
I'm not going to be honest. It's there.
Yeah.
It's there. And you can't face it unless you face it. You can't deal with it unless you face it. And so by not discussing it and, discussing these things is how we get through them, because we're all having tough times right now, all of us. And even if you're not personally having a tough time, all you have to do is turn on the TV, open a newspaper, open your social media feed. I mean, and you can see the world crumbling around us. And And how do we get through these tough times? How do we manage all that? Not just we as individuals, but we as a culture and a society. How do we do that? It's a tough time for me personally. I can take the last year. It's been a struggle. Actually, if you go back a couple years now, the lifestyle I built myself 3 years ago was, shall we say, deemed not worthy by those with the power of being. I'm trying to be non-political here, so but it's deemed not worthy of a genuine lifestyle. They wanted people to live differently, and so that was taken away. Then that community asked me to run for office, as ill-prepared and and it's all that was, and as long shot as it was, we went on that journey, and we did about twice as good as we thought we could. Realistically speaking, we doubled what we theoretically said we should have, what our floor was, what we realistically did. And that was a journey. It was an exhaustive journey, but it was a journey. And then we rolled right into that, into dealing with health problems and vision problems that were starting at the end of that. And then we rolled into the health problems, which were starting at the end of that. And whether they're related or not, who knows? The stress of those 2 years probably had something to do with it. And the stress of those 2 years ending and having to figure out what the hell to do now probably had something to do with it. At least, if nothing else, setting myself up for when something came wrong, body wasn't prepared. Stress kills your immune system. And then I've had to deal with this last year of constant health issues, right? Being in the hospital. I'm not comfortable saying I was close to death this time, but I was on the road. We were on the path.
You always wait till the last freaking minute.
Well, I don't think I waited till the last minute this time, but I was on the road. Yeah. That's dumb. I got to stop doing that as well. But I've changed a lot of things.
Yes, you have.
I've made changes. We've tried to look at the bright side of even being blind, of losing my eyesight. I figured that part of that was slowed me down, made me have to take my time, allow my liver and other body to, the rest of that to kind of recover and get some health again, because I'm healthier now than I was 3 months ago. Despite the fact that 3 months ago I felt healthier than I had felt in a long time. I'm healthier now than I was then. And so in a sense, the eyesight thing slowed me down, made me make sure I took enough time to actually get healthier before I go off and now decide where the hell this life is going to take me from here on out. We still don't know. I don't know what the future holds for us, for this, for anybody. Does anybody know the future now? Economics is up in the air, not just for me, but for lots of people. Society, direction of culture. The direction of peace in the world at the moment isn't even clear. So, the fundamental truths that we've grown up with our entire lives are kind of being rewritten. How do you find silver linings in that? But there is one. It's an opportunity to reconnect with things that are genuinely important. It's an opportunity to remind ourselves that the chases we make for things, for careers, while they're important, they're not the most important thing. You have to chase your dreams. If you're a type A personality, if you're Elon Musk or someone like that, you have to chase your dreams. It's part of who you are. To not do it is to not be true to yourself. But not everybody's like that. Some people, in order to be true to themselves, they have to go on this long, painful journey. You know, a friend of ours is dealing through a similar journey that I dealt with at 35. He's dealing with at 25, 26. And, it's hard for him to understand that you're a decade ahead, kind of what a lot of people deal with. These are kind of these loss and traumas, and how do you deal with it? And how do you move forward? How do you become the person that you want to be in the face of all this negativity, in the face of yourself, where you look back at yourself and you're only 25 and you look back into history. It's only a few years ago, right? Or if even that long, I wasn't the person I want to be. And you have to face that, because you can't become the person you want to be until you face the person that you weren't. The person that you were, accept it, and accept that you weren't the person you wanted to be. And you move forward. And the odd thing is, you're never going to be the person you want to be. You will always be able to look back and say, I wasn't the person I want to be. Because you're always moving forward. Or you should be. As you become closer to the person you want to be, the person you want to be becomes higher, becomes different. Becomes higher, becomes better, but you have a different understanding, a better understanding of who you want to be. So the silver lining is that you can always have the opportunity to learn something about yourself. There's always that opportunity to grow, to become closer to what you want to be. I think we've done that. We've done it here. In the last 11, 12 years, almost 12 years now.
Almost 12 years, July 8th.
We're different people than we were 12 years ago, were we not?
Yes.
It wasn't always easy.
We've made it through together through the changes. It's miraculous when that happens, I think.
And, sometimes those difficult times end up being, I don't want to say catalyst for change, but end up being a marker in time.
Yes. There was a before and after.
Yes. Now, the journey is kind of the same. Maybe that event helped you focus. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it's just a roadmap, a road post. Hey, something happened right here, so we're going to put a plaque, something up so we remember it. But it's just part of the journey. It's something to remember, but it's just part of the journey. You don't want to. There's a difference between remembering things and holding on to them. If you put it as a marker, as part of the journey, you can come back to it and you can look back at it and you can go, wow, weren't we dumb? Or wow, we learned a lot since then, or whatever it is. But you don't want to carry that around with you. Since we call it putting it on the shelf. You put it on the top shelf of the closet. You look at, take it down. You look at it every now and again. Do we need to open this box? Nah. You stick it back up there. But we
look at a lot of different things. We got a lot of boxes.
But we don't ignore them.
No.
We don't let them get all dusty and in the closet. We don't allow them to be forgotten while they're in the closet. We revisit them and say, is now the time? Well, we want to, but stuff keeps happening. And so stuff that we should deal with doesn't get dealt with because, frankly, there's more important stuff on the plate.
Apparently, it's not that important since it can sit on the shelf sometimes for years at a time.
Yeah, and there's stuff on the shelf that we take off more regularly than others. And we look at it. Can we deal with this now? I say, yeah, we're getting close. But then something happens and it has to sit on the shelf a little while longer. But what that tells you is, in the grand scheme of things, that's not the most important thing. Dealing with that, while important, we're acknowledging that it's important to deal with at some point. It's going to have to be dealt with.
Yes.
We acknowledge that.
Yes.
And at some point it will be, but stuff, in this case, my eyes and my health, or someone goes on a trip or whatever it is, pick your poison. For us, it seems to be a rolling cage. Maybe one day life will slow down a little bit and we can catch up. But every time we seem to catch up, life throws us more curveballs. But we're just like everybody else. And the difference is, though, we laugh at them.
Every day.
We laugh at the curveballs as we swing and miss and fall down at the curveballs. We laugh, we pick ourselves back up, dust ourselves back on. Well, we missed that one, looked like a fool, didn't we? Yeah, well, what are you going to do? And we keep going. A silver lining just means you've either learned a lesson or you haven't allowed it to drag you down. It doesn't mean it's not hard. A lot of people keep saying they're impressed is the wrong word, but how I've been dealing with this being blind for the last 6 months.
You've done it with style and grace on the outside. Yeah. I know.
Yes, I've done it, but that's the thing. I also acknowledge that on the inside I'm a petulant little child. But the trick is, by allowing myself to be a petulant little child on the inside, it gives me the freedom to have it with grace on the outside. Because I've acknowledged it. I don't tell him to shut up and go away. I let the petulant little child inside who wants to feel sorry for himself, who wants to go, oh, why me, and all that kind of, let him say it. Let him express himself. On an occasion, I'm feeling especially on edge, I let it express himself to you. I let him express himself to my therapist, but I let him express himself. I don't bury him. I say, okay, it's great. I know you feel that way, but now what are you going to do? And inevitably the answer becomes, well, nothing. I just wanted to be heard. Because what are you going to do? Going to throw a fit? You're going to lay down on the ground and kick and scream like a toddler? Okay, but what good's that going to do? It's not even going to make you feel better. It's going to make you feel like a jackass later when you realize, it's not even going to make you feel better. So what are you going to do? You're going to make the people around you miserable? You're going to make yourself more miserable? Or are you going to do the best you can? And I think we just try to do the best we can. Okay. And I forgot where I was going with that one. So, but what are the things we lean on? As we deal with these, the tough times, silver linings, small victories.
Small victories. Yes. Getting out of bed in the morning.
But when we talk about this,
is a victory for me.
Yeah, but okay, the question is, what's the importance of viewing these as small victories, I guess, is the question. Why do we want to view these as small victories? What's the purpose?
Well, I like having a positive attitude. It feeds on itself.
Yeah. One of the ways I explained it here in the description was it's like a walking stick. It allows you to transfer strength, have more balance. Instead of having two legs, you now have three. And instead of having to only put all your weight on your legs, you now can put weight on your arm. Your arm can carry some of that weight. It helps. You view it as a positive way to start your day. Why? Because it helps. It's better than the alternative. Oh God, I got to get up again today and go off and do the drudgery. Well, this is true. You got to get up and go off and do the drudgery, and no one really wants to do that. But at least you can get up. At least the sun is shining.
Exactly.
You know, at least you're breathing. What is it? I had an old friend, you know, he wasn't a Monday person, but neither was I. But he'd say good morning every day. And I say, there's nothing good about mornings. And says, well, it's better than the alternative. Meaning it's better than not having a morning.
Yes.
Right? Hey, don't like mornings either, but it's better than not having one.
Yes.
Yeah, it's better than sleeping through it. You know, it's better than laying there through it because you're not sleeping at that stage. But, it's better than death is what his point was. This is a guy whose wife had cancer and all kinds of things, and yet he could find that, well, it's better than the alternative. The fact that him and his wife woke up that morning to him was a victory. Because he knew that, sometimes that's the only victory you can get. And that's ultimately the victory you want. You want to wake up every day with somebody who loves you. You want them to wake up every day. The rest of it is just the rest of it. But first you have to wake up, right?
Yes.
The early bird gets the worm, the second mouse gets the cheese. Well, at least you woke up. Well, maybe not the first mouse. Because the saying about the second mouse getting the cheese.
Right.
It's because the first mouse set off the trap.
Mm-hmm.
The second mouse can walk in and eat the cheese all he wants. Because the first mouse is sitting there stuck with a trap snapped his neck. So, you don't have to be the first one. Just be the smartest one. I don't know where I went with that. Sometimes I don't know where I'm going. And it just ends up that way. So, what do we want to do? Ooh, it's 9:20 already.
Well, there was an article that you posted.
Mhm.
Parents just don't tell your kids not to stare at mine. They had a special needs son, and that's what she heard. And from a parent, please don't, you're not supposed to stare. That's not nice. And she encouraged people to start a conversation. Hi, so just say hello. And they're out having a good time, just like everybody else, and ready to mingle,
But maybe they're not. Maybe it's at the grocery store. And you don't want to mingle. Now, part of the reason is, I suppose, is we don't want to be judgmental on why. Because you don't want to teach your children to stare. Right? Because they're just like somebody else. Do you stare at people? I mean, even if someone isn't disabled, it's rude to stare.
Yes.
And so you want to teach your children that it's rude to stare. But at the same time, this is a child trying to learn about the world. And so when they see something that is out of the ordinary, their brains focus on it and they're trying to understand it. And so in a sense, their point about, have the conversation with your child, look, you don't want to stare. You have some issue, what are you noticing? And having that full conversation with your child, I can understand that you do want to do. I'm not entirely sure going and bothering somebody, and having a conversation when it might not be appropriate, like at the grocery store or someplace. Smile. If they notice that your child is staring and you notice that you smile and, do the kind of common courtesy you would do with anybody in that situation. The thing for me is you don't want to treat someone who is disabled any differently than you would treat somebody else. So if it's a situation where you would walk up and introduce and say hi anyway, then by all means, walk yourself up, say hi. And they know that they look different. And so the fact, if it comes up that it's going to come up in conversation, but the point is to not treat it any differently as anything else. if you have a question, the only way you can get an answer is to ask. And sometimes the best person to ask is the person who you're interested in. Now, children, it's difficult because children have no filter. And things can come out, not how they intend. Right? It can seem more abrupt than they intend. What's wrong with them? But mommy, and that's not really what they mean. What they really mean is, why are they different? I don't understand. And then you have a opportunity to explain to them that some people are born different. They develop differently, than you and I, and they have different challenges in life than you and I, but it's our job to treat them the same way we treat everybody else. The same courtesy and respect. The people that I have known who, whether it's autism, whether it's more severe cases to less severe cases, whether it's deformities, all they really want is to be treated like a normal person. That's all they really want. Their children to be treated like a normal person. Now they know that sometimes their children are more at risk of predators than other people. And so that's a fine line for them to walk. It's like having your heart walk around on other feet, because they're not fully capable of protecting themselves from hurt sometimes. And even if they are, emotionally able to protect themselves from hurt, it's still hard as a parent, because they shouldn't have to. Nobody should have to, but kids who face extra challenges shouldn't have to. And how do you have that conversation it's difficult. There's no clear answer, because I wouldn't walk up to somebody in the store and create a conversation unless it feels natural, unless it feels right. Sometimes it does. You can tell. You look at somebody, they smile, you smile at them, it seems friendly. You say hi, that's a cool thing, and you start having it's a cool chair or whatever, and you start having a conversation about, something. Hey, I like your hat. Whatever it is. There's a natural conversation that you have with anybody, like in line. You're standing in line with somebody and, hey, I like your scarf. You have a conversation about their scarf for a minute. Sometimes, you have a minute. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes a person has other things on their mind. They don't want to engage with you, and that's fine. Sometimes they're friendly and you end up having a 5-minute conversation or whatever it is. And it's fine. Just do that. And teach your children to do that. Right? When appropriate, you make adjustments for them. Yes. But for the most part, they're just a person who wants to have a human interaction. We're just people wanting to have human experiences and share those human experiences. And, you can't love other people until you love yourself. And part of teaching your children to be kind to other people, it's also teaching them to be kind to themselves. Children are wonderful things. They make these connections. That if I'm expected to be kind to other people, I can expect other people to be kind to me. And I should expect other people to be kind to me. So it goes beyond teaching your children to not stare. It's teaching your children to be human. And we need that in the world right now. All right, it's your break time. Take an extra minute, because I'm going to cover that question you didn't want to cover. So,
all right.
So give it a couple extra minutes. So we left a question off the list. today. And I'm going to answer it while Lovey's gone because, well, it's my feeling that we should be able to talk about anything here. So the question was, someone was asking about their sister was confided into them that one of their parents was not tickling them at night, was bothering them at night, and it wasn't tickling, it was something else. And this question is, what do I do? And normally we say, talk to the other parent, find somebody to talk to. And this one is going to be quite simple. Call whichever one you're more comfortable with. CPS or the police. You have no other choice. You just don't. The only thing harder than what you're going to go through if you do this is what you go through if you don't. Life gives us things we have to deal with, whether we like them or not, that we shouldn't have to deal with, but we do. And you have an opportunity to stop pain. And while it's understandable that you'd want to put this responsibility off on someone who is better suited, or who should be better suited to dealing with it, you don't have a choice. And it's one of those sad things in life that I wish we didn't have to cover. And I can understand Lovey's resistance to talking about this, but we have to be willing to talk about it if we're going to end it. And so on these kind of situations, I'm not one to say go to police or CPS. It's not my favorite institutions, but you do it. Okay. All right. Friendships, parents, right sides of disorders. Friendships are a struggle. Oh, actually, we did cover all this stuff. I did a 22-minute narrative and covered all those things.
Yes, you did.
Huh. I was actually a little short. I figured it was going to go 25 minutes. I feel like I forgot something I wanted to cover. I should take better notes.
Blame the intern.
Blame the intern. I can't get you to show up in studio on time. What are you talking about?
I'm the talent.
Talents there's a word for that. Call it diva, ma'am.
I'm a diva.
Yeah, you're something, all right. All right, so what do we got?
Okay, here's one for you. Why do they say the subconscious mind only understands symbol and language? How is this true when clearly we can understand everything?
Well, actually, I think he's misphrased his question. The subconscious mind only understands symbolic language. It doesn't actually understand language. It understands symbolism. It doesn't understand language itself. Language is something created. The subconscious mind understands stuff that is evolved, some stuff that's more natural. Subconscious mind understands, body language. It understands, the clouds and the trees and the tones of the birds and that kind of thing, the things you don't pick up on actively most often. Until your subconscious picks it up and says, hey, pay attention to that.
Or the birds stop chirping.
The birds stop chirping or they all start chirping, either one. Or there's a change in pace. So maybe there's a predator coming. These are the things that are instinctive. But we don't. Subconscious doesn't understand language. That's too high input, too high functioning. So, first, he's got it wrong. And two, who says we can understand everything? You must disabuse you of that notion that we can understand everything. There's lots of things we can understand. Think about time. I'm not going to go on my time thing because that'll cover 15 minutes. But just contemplate, Einstein's theory of relativity and time. How that relates to time. If the faster you go, the slower time goes. What does that mean for time? You think we understand it? We don't understand how gravity works. We don't understand jack diddly or squat. The more you learn, the less you know.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm 60, and the older I get, the more less I know. It's interesting, but I'm comfortable with it now.
Yeah, at 16, you think you know everything and you know nothing. At 50, 60, you know a lot and you know nothing.
Yeah.
It's just how it goes. It's the way the world works. And I was at 16 saying, I was no different at 16 than any other 16-year-old. So I'm not throwing stones. It's just how the world, Sometimes it's better to not know. Sometimes it's better to not know something is impossible. That way you try, and it becomes possible. No, lots of stuff that were deemed impossible. Flight. It can never happen. Well, except for some young moron bicyclists, decided that they wanted to fly. Well, it wasn't just them. John Curtis also was inventing the plane at the same time. So whether it was the Wright brothers or John Curtis was like 4 weeks behind. That's essentially the same time. In the grand scope of human history, right? The plane was essentially invented by two different groups at the same time. Often happens in history. Same thing with the telephone. Literally, the paper was turned in on the same day. Who got there first? Essentially. Graham Bell got there first. Well, not really, depending upon whose account. He wasn't even the first person to turn the paperwork in. But he paid to get his paper slipped in at the bottom of the stack, so it got stamped first. According to legend. That's, take it for what it's worth. What? Okay, what's next?
What can I do when my husband and I have been forced into taking care of his 87-year-old mother who can't be left alone, but my husband's family is criticizing me, saying I'm not doing a good enough job and that their mom and dogs should come first?
Did we cover this?
No, I don't think so.
Maybe I just read it and threw it out last week and we didn't cover it. Well, first, if they want to, they think you're not doing a good enough job, then they can take care of their mother and her dogs. That's the first thing. But it's not just your decision. That's one of those things you and your husband are going to have to sit down and have a conversation and say, look, if we're going to take care of your mother, you're going to have to get your brother and sisters and off my back about how we're doing it. Sometimes you end up having to do things for family you don't necessarily want to do. And that's just the way life is. So, you're not going to get a whole lot of sympathy from me for having to take care of your aging mother-in-law. But you should be honored for it and respected for it and helped by those who are supposed to love her and not criticized without help. If they're going to criticize you, they should be following up with help. Do we need to can we have a maid come in once a week to help you with the cleaning? Something. Whatever it might be. So
there's in-home health services who can help with the bathing.
Yeah. or whatever it is. Whatever tasks it is you dislike to do, maybe they can find someone to do that, so the other tasks don't feel so burdensome. Because a lot of times you don't feel overly burdened by all the tasks. It's just one or two things that you really don't like to do, and they kind of drag everything else down. And so, find those one or two things that really irritate you, get help for those, and maybe it's not such a burden. But this is a subject you and your husband are going to have to tackle together. So, okay.
If programming is so easy, why are there so many unfilled jobs?
Who says programming is easy? Where does this idea? Is this a learn to code nonsense where just go learn to code? No. A decent programmer, a decent coder is a skill and a talent just as much as any other. You can't not necessarily just become a good coder because you just want to become a good coder. It doesn't work that way. There's lots of perfectly qualified coders and programmers who can't code their way out of a paper bag. And there's lots of people who aren't qualified who are much better. Most of the hackers in the world don't qualify as programmers. It's not an easy thing. And the reason there's so many unfilled positions is because there's a lack of respect for it. Businesses and business managers don't actually understand the job. They don't understand the tasks. So they overhire and underpay. They hire too many workers. Because they're hiring too many, they underpay them. If they hired higher quality, paid them more, they wouldn't need so many. But it's not easy. And part of the problem is we've been telling people, go retrain yourself, learn to code. We've flooded the market with people who have essentially no coding skills because they don't understand the backbone. It's not in their nature. To be a good programmer, you need to live and breathe that stuff. It's not just a career, it's a hobby. It's part of who you are. It's like being a doctor. You don't turn that stuff off. Even on your off hours, you're still studying, you're still learning, you're still growing, you're still working. Just because you can't help it. So, that's it.
What is something that you swear happened but you have no proof and nobody believes you?
Well, I have a million of those. It took a long time for people to realize that weird stuff happens to me.
It took me a long time. I thought you were just exaggerating. If you can find a bureaucratic hole, you will fall into it.
Well, then there's that, and then there's the alien thing. Well, okay, the unidentified flying object. Probably a military craft, but it was clearly an unidentified flying object. Could have been aliens, but it was probably military. There's that. No one's going to believe me. I'm not saying I know what the hell it was. Unidentified, don't know what the hell it was. And no, we hadn't been drinking yet. It happened later. So what about you over there?
I can't think of anything. I've been trying to think all day.
Okay. All right, so what's next?
What types of bad parenting do kids usually never recover from?
I was listening to a lecture from a psychology professor. And he says, never let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. And so it's an interesting thing. Disliking your children is probably the worst thing that your child you could do to your child. that they can't recover from. Because how do you recover from it? You can get past abuse, but how do you get past from being disliked, rejected by those who brought you into this world? You could write down abuse to misguided, broken. There's all kinds of things you can do, but how do you get past being rejected? I just don't know. So maybe it's rejection, emotional rejection. It's probably the one thing that the child has most difficulty getting over.
Those are mine.
I would think.
I knew my mother loved me, but there were things about me she didn't like.
Well, I mean, that's different. Having things about you that you having, that's different than being not liking the child.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know, but I think that just emotional rejection, I think that's the worst thing you could do to a child. Now, how that manifests itself, it's different, but we see it. It's one of those things like pornography is, you know it when you see it. Okay.
My daughter is allowing her stepmother to call herself my grandchild's grandmother. It's hurtful. What should I do?
Nothing.
It's not your choice.
It's none of your damn business. Children can have more than one grandparent. They often do. And they have another person in their life that loves them. What's wrong with that? Being a grandmother, being a grandparent is not about the title. You don't have to do anything to earn the title as a biological grandparent. But as a step parent, you have to earn that title to someone to grant it to you. They've done something to earn that title. And, rather than whining about it, maybe you should honor it. You don't have to be threatened by it. You can have two different judgments. Two things can be true. You can love the child and she can love that child. They're not mutually exclusive. The child can love both of you. It's not mutually exclusive. There's plenty of love in the world to go around. Love is a strange thing. The more you have, the more you get. The more you put out, the more there is in the world. This child is loved. Why are you complaining? Get out of your own way. You're the one getting in the way of this child being loved. Get out of the way. Your role is your role. Be loved. I don't understand why you would complain that a child is loved by more people. I just don't get it. So anyway, okay.
Am I a bad mother for retiring abroad and abandoning my children and grandchildren?
Well, since you're retiring, I'm assuming your children aren't like 5 or 10 or something. They're adults, right? So by definition, you're not abandoning your children. I mean, I'm assuming they're adults, right? You're not
Yes.
30 and abandoning teenagers or something, So my guess is that your children and grandchildren are not abandoned. You're just moving. Moving happens all the time. I can understand how you feel that way. I mean, we've been discussing kind of casually, quasi-seriously, but not, moving to a tropical island, and which is hard being away from family and all that stuff. But it's not abandoning them. It feels that way, but it feels that way to you. I mean, it might feel that way to them for a little while, but it's not an abandonment. What, we supposed to never move, never go on with your lives, never do anything different? Out of some sense of what? Some sense of duty to adults, children? No. It's you are feeling guilty for wanting to place your priorities first. And it's valid. And if you can't live with yourself, then you shouldn't move. If it's that big of a burden for you, maybe you shouldn't move. But it's not an abandonment. It's just going on with your own life. There comes a point where you no longer have to raise your children. They are raising their own children. And you can help, but you don't have to hover anymore. And it's hard because you spend 20 years or longer, raising these kids. It becomes part of who you are. Part of, you're a mother, you're a father, you're a parent. But now you're not. It's no longer your duty. Your duty is now evolved. It's now different. A support clerk somewhere. Your information booth. You're the person who your grandchildren get to are happy to see. They love you and you love them. But if they have functional parents, they don't need you. They want you. And that's even more beautiful. But you still have your own life to live. You still have 20 years, 25 years. You still have to be you. Yeah. Well, moving to another foreign country is the right call or not, don't know. That's for you to decide. Yeah, but drop the word abandon and then reframe it and then look at it. That's my suggestion. Because it's the poison pill. By using the word abandon, you're poisoning the conversation. Okay.
Good looks are generally rewarded by society. What are some unique social obstacles faced by only good-looking people?
Too much attention. Life gets too easy. Too many things thrown at your feet. God, if you're an attractive teenager attractive teenage girl, God, that would have to be annoying. And kind of flattering, but annoying as well.
I was a pretty girl. It was flattering, but it got boring. It's like, yeah, what else about me? So what? That's just superficial.
Yeah. So, no one goes through life unscathed and unscarred. We all carry a burden. Just because we think our burdens are heavier than somebody else's doesn't mean they are. They're just different. And maybe sometimes life is too easy. You get too many opportunities thrown at their plate, so they don't have to learn to struggle. And so by the time they get to, say, college or something where it's full of attractive, successful people and they can no longer skate by on their charm and good looks and they have to actually do work, they don't know how. personal interactions, if everybody's always coming up to you, starting the personal interactions, you never learn how to do that. What happens when you become average? You're surrounded, you're in a room full of beautiful people, and now you have to have actual personality. You never had the opportunity to develop it. There's downsides to everything. Yin and yang. A balanced life is the best life. So anytime someone's life is unbalanced, whether it's attractiveness, athleticism, take your pick, there's a price for that. Just because we don't see the price doesn't mean it's not a heavy one. And speaking of heavy prices, this last question.
I just found out my 16-year-old daughter is pregnant. She's keeping the baby. What advice would you give me as her mother on handling the situation? I'm open to all advice. What are your words of wisdom?
Well, I don't have any words of wisdom because, that ship has sailed. And so the question is, where do you go from here? And I think you're already on the right path. You're opening to listening. You're open to learning. You're open to, you clearly had a discussion with your daughter. She's clearly close enough to you to have an open conversation at 16 about, choice she made that turned out poorly. So if you've done some good things right, 16-year-olds make poor choices regardless of you raising them. So, there's a standard, well, you did something wrong. Not necessarily. You could have done everything right and she still makes the wrong choice because teenage hormones. So that ship has sailed. So you deal with what's in front of you. She is now a mother. She's chosen to be a mother. The minute she chose to keep the baby, she is now a mother. Right? She made that choice. And so you have a few months to get her from a teenager to a mother. And that's what you have to do. It starts with taking care of her health. Starts with taking care of her space, making sure her room and everything is picked up. She's organized. Because if she's disorganized, she's going to drown in what's coming. And the hardest part is you're going to have to let her make some mistakes on her own because she's going to make a lot of them because we all do. Some of these things feel mutually exclusive. How can you prepare her in the next few months for becoming a mother while allowing her to make mistakes? Well, because that's what prepares you to be a mother. She's in a safe environment, right? She's in your home. So she's got a roof over her head. She's got some stability there, which is it's a freaking huge thing. There's stability on she's not having to worry where she lays her head. She doesn't have to worry that her child is going to be sleeping in the cold, right? So you've actually got the biggest, most important worry covered. So you deal with her health. Try not to hound her on her future. She's worried about that anyway. It's a lot of times people try to hound their kids on their education, and it's all true. You want them to continue their education. You want them to push forward, but don't hound them on it because they know. You don't need to remind them constantly. They know. You don't need to up the pressure. You need to find out how to depressurize the situation as best you can. Because it's what's going to be what's best for her health. Stress is a terrible thing. Terrible for her, terrible for the baby, terrible for the future. You make bad choices. So My best guess, words of wisdom, take deep breaths. You know how to do this. You've raised children before. You don't have to raise the children, but you're still raising one. You're not raising a baby, but you're still raising a teenager. It's an odd thing. And there's no rule book for this. There's no script. But, approach it with love, compassion, kindness. You'll move forward. Just move forward. And the silver lining is you'll have a beautiful little baby. It's one of the most glorious things. The laugh of a toddler, the laugh of a child, the greatest sound on earth. A lot of people would be saying they don't want to bring a child into the world right now. And I think that's wrong. If you're full of love, if your family is full of love, then you are the ones who need to be bringing a child into the world right now. Your house is full of love. You're facing something you didn't want to face, but your house is full of love. It'll be okay. So anyway, with that, as we all go on our journeys, this particular journey is at an end, but our journey is not. We will be back with you next week, 9 p.m. You can find us at latenightLove.us. You can send Lubby a letter at love@latenightLove.us.
I'd love to hear from you.
And you can find me at JazzRack on Twitter, or you can find us on Facebook, MeWe, Minds, your favorite podcast network. Just search Late Night Love. And for me and Lubby, we want to thank you for joining with us. And please remember to love everybody.
Good night.